Hi, just to briefly mention what we're going to discuss in this video. First of all, we're going to talk about a few changes to the way we're going to do things on this channel with regards to those people supporting the channel. What I was thinking is doing some credits at the end of the video and just including that person's first name and in a way just to say thank you for supporting the channel as you have done. Something else I wanted to talk about later on in the video is the update to the website. Just briefly talk about the Brussels bombing recently and who's behind that, or could possibly be behind that. And I wanted to do a little bit on the philosophy of what people consider to be normal. I think it's a good topic to discuss just briefly, not going to get too deep into it. And finally, I'll finish off with a few electronics which I quickly threw together to take on a fishing trip, and what happened during that overnight stay on a beach recently in the UK, and the situation which I found myself in unexpectedly, and just some of the equipment that I took that failed. Now, some of you that are into Bugout equipment might be interested in that. Having to keep clicking off this Windows has detected something about the performance being slow at the bottom there, so if I just leave it up after a bit, you just have to ignore that. So big thanks to those people, first of all, that have over the last month supported the channel with a donation and also the website. I've made some changes to the website. We've now put up the Learning Centre and just a few things which I wrote, descriptions on the magnetosphere, why the Earth goes through magnetic pole shifts, and also what was the other one I did? How we know that the Earth goes through the magnetic pole shifts. That's to do with the the Atlantic ridge and seafloor spreading. If you want to go over to the website, have a look at that. That's something that we're going to keep updating regularly over the the months to come. We'll try and cram in as much geomagnetic information into the Learning Centre and briefly discuss the paleomagnetic anomalies over the past history of the Earth, as well as other related information. Just a quick update on the magnetometer station. I'm going to set aside a couple of days again this week to try and knock out the bugs in the data logger. Failing this, I just cannot keep chucking time into this and getting nowhere. I'm going to probably end up taking it to a university where they understand the basics of the programming language, which is, I believe, IC2 for Arduinos, and see if we can get someone from the university just to give us a little help out with that, so we can get the live data going up onto the website. So, just before I move off this, I just wanted to show that this channel is international. Some of the countries that you'd never think, we do have, subscribers in. I'm just going to quickly go over Europe and the Far East, and you can see yourselves that we've got quite a lot of viewers internationally on this channel. Even in Iceland, would you believe it, guys? United States, Canada, and South America, Ecuador, Peru, Brazil, Bolivia, Peru, Argentina, and not forgetting Australia and New Zealand. And you've got Philippines, Indonesia. We're international. Over the last month, 60,000 views. So whatever we discuss in the last month, is getting out there, guys. The awareness of the magnetic pole shift and the data, and the updates on the websites. The news is getting out there to the people, albeit not in large quantities. But we're doing the best as usual on this channel with what we've got at hand. So the Brussels bombing that happened yesterday, to me, I'm at the point where, I don't pretty know which way to go on it. I'm definitely rocking on these events being false flag, deliberately created to serve a purpose. In this case, it could be that Europe want to go into the Middle East in some form of conflict, and in order to get people's support, of course, by these attacks, you can do that. It's a problem, reaction, solution scenario, possibly, which is taken out, which is obviously being portrayed on the media. And if you just notice how much the media yesterday covered the subject of the Brussels bombing, you'll know that it's definitely something that mainstream media want to push. So I'm going to find something else for us to look at other than this map of the world, so we can discuss then just briefly the philosophy then of what people and humanity consider normal. And I think it's a brilliant exercise to do, and just talk about the topic, because sometimes we do live in a bubble. We don't believe that we're part of anything else, let alone the greater things such as nature. Something just come to mind then. That which is above corresponds to that which is below, to, I believe, realise the miracle of one thing. My understanding of that statement is the nature of the universe is above us and below us on this earth, and we are very much part of nature as a whole. And just to realise that can lead to a different understanding in some respects as to the greater picture. And I think that is what the miracle is associated with. That some of you guys out there might have different opinions on that statement, but that certainly is mine. And it seems to flow for what is above and what is below. You're never going to avoid the nature of this universe. It's all around us. And it's on that note that I wanted to talk briefly about this philosophy about which is normal. So let's go and find something a little bit more interesting than what we're looking at right now to do, to begin discussing that. So, beautiful picture. Obviously there is nature in there. So, what is normal then? What do we consider normal as a species, as human beings? To me, this is something I've been thinking about over the last few days, and I think it's what the majority of people do. Like, for instance, although I disagree with it, some people would say it's normal for us to send our children to school. But is it? When we consider, or at least if we then, put ourselves as just a species on this planet and consider that there's many species on this planet, millions of species on this planet, then is it normal for us to send our children to school when compared to what other species do? You might think, well, this is a no-brainer, no other species has schools, but they do nevertheless teach their young or offspring to do something in life. That is, if it's not been naturally put in their genes. I can't think of the word, but I think you get where I'm going from. When they're born, they have the incentive already there to stand up and begin breathing. But we send our children off to school, and when compared to the diversity of species on this planet, they don't. So we consider this to be normal as a species, but when you consider what we do on the grand scheme of diversities of species, it's not. For instance, if we look at a leopard, it will teach its cubs how to hunt. Foxes do the same. Most of these other species do the same. They do it themselves. They don't give that role to other people like we do, and allow them to get an education. The other thing is, what I thought about is when the governments, because they control curriculums for our children, and they do have a lot of influence on our children, because from 9 o'clock till around 3:30, 4 o'clock, our children are being taught what the governments have set the curriculums for them to learn. Again, I don't agree with this system that's in place, and it's widespread now, and it's become what people class the norm. Now, you can get into arguments with people when you say, well, this is not normal at all, because we're the only species on this planet that are doing this, and all the other species teach their own offspring by themselves. So we can just use that as one example, but there are many examples of what people consider the norm, like getting up, going to work, has become the norm in order to obtain those necessities in some respects which sustain life, such as without going to work you can't obtain money, and therefore you can't participate in a monetary system, and therefore you can't obtain food. Well, no other species out there is doing this, what we consider to be normal. They're not doing that. They're working in a way to obtain their food, but they're not setting themselves times, every day like we do, and routines in order to do that. What they're doing is pretty naturally, when they're hungry, they start to hunt for food, and they feed their offsprings during a period of time until they become adults, and they can fend for themselves. But again, this is something that a majority of people do, and therefore it becomes the norm. Another one is renting or buying a property to live in. That is considered to be the norm. But again, when we look at the diverse species out there, they seem to choose where they want to build their nest, in whatever tree they choose, and just go about it by using the natural resources. And the more we talk about these things that we class as being the norm, the more you start to question then, in my particular case, then if we're doing all these things that are not considered norm with a diversity of species on the planet, then how do we class ourselves then as the intelligent species? It's going to give you a bit of food for thought. We're supposed to be the most intelligent species on the planet, yet we seem to be making ourselves go through these things we consider, because we do them, because people do them on a majority, most people do them that were considered normal, but it's not actually really normal, is it? When you consider looking at humanity as part of nature and just another species on this planet. The other thing is that although some species will be territorial, they don't claim ownership to the land like we do. This is building a picture, hopefully, about what we consider to be normal. When you exactly look at it on a wider spectrum, it's not actually normal. And pretty much most of the things we do is not naturally as they was probably intended for our species. And if we are going to be the only people that stand in a room where thousands of people are doing one thing and we are doing something opposite, then we are not doing what is normal. And I think we'll leave it there. I just wanted to give you some food for thought. And what I'll do, I wanted to move on to this fishing trip then that happened this weekend, and almost a disaster and quite worrying for me at least, and an eye-opener, and it has led about setting some different changes. But I'd certainly like your feedback on what we discussed with regards to what we feel is normal. So if you don't mind, let's move on to then perhaps looking at some of the electronics that I built in order for the weekend, and a brief discussion of what happened during that weekend where I went fishing. Someone come and pick me up and said, come on, we know that you've been in the doldrums for the last 3 weeks, why don't you come out fishing with us? So it didn't cost me a penny really. I took some food and some equipment as well as my fishing gear, and we went and had a bit of a break for 48 hours, and I'll discuss that now. So then, with regards to this fishing trip, I was invited to go overnight fishing with my brother. It's the first time he's took up the sport really and showed an interest in it. I hope it's a little bit more than a fad for my brother, because I enjoyed the time we had there over the 48 hours. However, it wasn't without some concern. Now we took what most people would take going fishing, and provisions for the 48 hours and overnight that we were stopping. Now, to give you an idea, the temperatures were around about 4 degrees Celsius, so it was cold. I took thermals, ski clothes, and we went to the beach called Chisel Beach, which is down Dorset way, south coast of the British Isles. And it's a popular beach. It's a protected beach. It's a pebble beach. It's very, very hard to walk over, especially when you're going up the banks. If you've been to Chisel Beach, you'll know what I'm talking about. It's like walking on a moving escalator. You don't really get anywhere because your feet sink into about a foot of pebbles. Like I say, I'm 42, and it made me feel like 72 going across this beach with all the equipment that we took. And it is for that reason that I've had to seriously have a look at some of the gear that I carry, and expect to carry during a Bugout situation in any case. So, a bit later on in this video, I'll show you how I've managed to compact some of that equipment down and just take really what is necessary for that time. So, one of the first concerns I had was, the equipment failing. I've got this wonderful little burner, which I'll show you in a bit, that collapses down into the palm of your hand and runs on those small canisters of gas. And I thought that would be enough. We took about 4 gallons of water. That was to do soups, pot noodles. I took a couple of sachets of these curries that you get in these little foil packs, and I'd made some naan breads up as well to dip in that, which we had around about 12 o'clock. But the cooker, on lighting it, it's a new cooker. I haven't really put it in the field to test it, and this is something we should do before we take equipment. Failed. And it wasn't until I got it back home and had a look at, I took it apart and realised that on the manufacturing of this small cooker, camping cooker, they hadn't fastened a bolt down that controls the amount of fuel that goes through this particular part. And it's a crude mechanism for regulating the amount of gas. It literally is just a bolt, and it relies on the loose fitting of the threads to allow a certain amount of gas to come through. However, when it's tightened, it does do its job, and I've realised, and rectified the problem for that. But, if it hadn't been for my brother also taking his camping cooker, we would have struggled to, heat water, make a cup of tea, or coffee, or heat any of the food. It would have been a little bit miserable than what it was had he not took his camping cooker. The other thing is that I knew the temperature was going to go down to 4 degrees. During the night, around about 12 o'clock, it really did start to feel cold, and it was damp as well. And if you was down on Chisel Beach this weekend, we were the ones that took the gazebo with the sides on it, that didn't erect it all the way up to the its full height. We kept it low because of the winds. It was around about 10 to 20 mile an hour winds. So when you add in the temperature of 4 degrees, you get some sort of idea of the conditions that we was in. And maybe we should have given that a little bit more thought. Even though we was all in thermal clothing during the night time, it was beginning to get a little bit uncomfortable and a little bit worrying. Not only were we, every 30 minutes, readjusting the equipment on the lines, recasting them back out, putting new bait on the lines. When we was not doing that, we were sitting in the chairs and things like that, but we was starting to feel the cold, and obviously the fatigue of tiredness was getting in. Looking after 2 rods each, did take its toll. after a bit, and especially when you're not doing this on a daily thing, you think we're just casting out, rebaiting your gear is easy work, but it's not. It's work. You have to work at trying to catch these fish, otherwise you're not going to at all. So because of the bait that we was using, it was very difficult to keep the bait on the hook for less than 30 minutes, or for more than 30 minutes. So we was having to rebait the hooks every 30 minutes, so it meant there was a lot of work. But the worrying thing for me was the cold temperature, and the fatigue of tiredness was starting to creep in, and I didn't want to go to sleep, because although my fingertips were starting to feel like the blood had slowed down. I mean, I've suffered with Raynaud's anyhow, so does my brother, and if you've ever seen what that is, it makes your hands go white and your toes go white as well. So I was starting to at some point get the feeling that could be coming on at any time. And really, although the signs of hypothermia are usually the beginning stages are shaking of freezing cold temperatures, certainly an indication for me and my brother who have Raynaud's in our hands. What the Raynaud's is that your skin pores react differently in your hands to how a normal person would, with regards to the cells in the hands. When our hands are cold, the pores open to release even more heat, whereas normal people's hands, they close to keep the heat in. And we also get prickly heat in the summer, where our pores have closed because they're hot, instead of opening to let the heat out. So you get the idea. But it was a worry for me that if I fell asleep, I wouldn't probably even notice the signs of hypothermia, and in those temperatures I could possibly slip into hypothermic state and not even wake up. Whether that would have been the case or not, was nevertheless, it still worried me. And around about 2 o'clock, I decided it was now time to go and get whatever I could to get a fire going on the beach. And that led to another problem. Not just was it me and my brother who had gone camping. My brother had brought his son, who was 14, a few days ago. Happy birthday to him, by the way, if he watches. And I got this fire going, but I kept it as close to the tabernacle style tent that we took. I mean, that's what it looked like, guys. And I lit this fire quite close to the entrance, and then all the smoke there was going in there, and I was quite concerned that not only we were feeling cold, that I was probably increasing the risks of us getting carbon monoxide poisoning off the fire, because we'd literally filled the inside of this tent up with now smoke. And it was getting irritating, because when we were sitting down, you couldn't avoid the smell and the smoke that was in there, even though, two sides of this tent was completely open. These were the things that was starting to cause concern. And not only that, there was a limited amount of wood that I could find on the beach to light the fire, so I had to keep it generally small. Now, it would have been nice if my burner, that my camping cooker, was working. That during the times we had to rebait the hooks and work in cold, substances such as the bait and the water, we could have, got some heat back into our hands that way. And the fire did eventually go out, but then it was relit a few hours later, because I just felt, I've got to keep awake, I've got to keep the fire going. And these are the things that you're just not gonna, I had no anticipation which I was going to experience, and it made it a little bit uncomfortable just for that purpose. Although it was a great fishing trip, it just opened my eyes up to, the kit that I used, the kit that I took, because that nearly killed me, getting the kit to the beach across the pebbles. I thought definitely we need to reduce the size in all this stuff that we take, and it has to be reliable, and it has to work as it should do. And more thought needs to be going into things like what you wear, and taking the weather into consideration a little bit more. Now, the point of all this story is really, guys, is that some of you are preppers, some of you are bug outers, and you've got your bug out kits, and you think, well, if ever I need to, I can just grab that kit and head off. Should that moment arise where there's no other alternative but to do that, you're going to be faced with similar situation as to what I was during this intended fishing trip, where we took, we had time to plan and all this, but you can imagine if ever that situation arose, you wouldn't have time, and certainly you would plunge yourself into the deep end. Now, this went bad for us this weekend only because of the weather and the elements, but had we not made those preparations and plans, it would have been a lot worse. Now, you can imagine in an emergency evacuation of some sort, where you grab that bug out kit and you've not put any of these things to the test, you're going to struggle immensely. And it's about, if ever those times do occur for you, that you really do get out there and put them to the test, even if you use a fishing trip for the excuse to do that. Take your kit out there and test it. Because I tell you now, I have learned a lot about just this small encounter with the elements and being out there, and it's made me reevaluate pretty much everything in that bag, because I think you want to be in a strong situation from the start of when you bug out, and you can improve on that as you're going along. But I mean, it could have been a lot worse conditions. We could have been in the mist of the main part of the winter and been in snow and whatever else, and that would have added extra implications to this experience we had. So I'll just briefly show you some of the things that I've changed now with some of the things that I learned over this weekend, and we'll wrap the video up there, and we'll put some credits up for those people that have supported the channel. So I do think it's valuable information, and it might save some people's life one day, who knows. I hope it does. I hope, first of all, that we never end up in a situation where we have to, any of us, use this equipment. But it does seem that when you look at the news and you look at these natural disasters, sometimes we are faced with no other opportunity but to fight and survive. So with that, guys, let's just have a look at some of the equipment then that I've modified and just put together for such a trip again. And this is something that will remain in my bug out kit from now on.
Regards to electrical utilities, you're going to need a power supply. So what I've got is two headway batteries, each having a capacity of 10 amps each, or 10,000 milliamps each. I've got on the bottom, they're 3.5 volts or thereabouts each battery. I've got them linked in series, so we're getting nearly 6.7 volts fully charged. And I've got those going to a voltage boost regulator under there. If I don't know if you can see that just at the bottom. I haven't set it in place yet, but you can see it underneath there. And this is just an amps and voltage and amps indicator, and it also can reduce, if you put 30 volts in there at about 4 or 5 amps, it can reduce it down to any voltage you want and any milliamps you want. Draw on that. But I've got the reason why I've put that in this box, and as you can see, it folds up. It's not very big at all. On the front you've got the on-off switch. On the side you've got the PTO, or the power takeoff, which is just connected with a couple of bullet clips. They're XT80s, I think. And obviously it's going to a light, so what I'll do is just switch it on. So we've got the LED light on, and as you can see, it doesn't draw that much. 0.70 amps at 12 volts. What's happening is these 3 volt batteries are in series, so we get 6 volts, boosting it up to 12 volts. And we can also, with this lantern, we can turn it down so that the milliamps drops and it consumes even less. As you can see, as we turn it down, you know, you can have it. Now I know in this light it doesn't look a lot, and it's only drawing 0.090, 0.10 milliamps. So it's just an indication when you've got a capacity of 20,000 milliamps, how long that would last, you know, over that many hours. One other thing we're going to put on that, just switch it off, is a USB connector. It's on another voltage boost regulator. I think it boosts 0.9 volts to about 6 volts, so if I'm not mistaken. And the other thing, and that gives me the facility then to charge up mobile phones, cameras and other bits and bobs. The other thing I was going to put on it is this solar power charger, lithium ion charger, and that just gives me the capacity then to also charge these batteries up off solar panel. So it's a good all-round kit. It provides power, provides light, provides a charging facility, and it doesn't really consume much space. So, you know, in future I'll be taking that. This is a modification and an improvement on the one we use currently for camping. I mean, we carry a 12-volt car battery, which is down there, and that goes in a trailer, which has got a few other facilities. I mean, it's got a Perkins engine in there connected up to a generator, so it can produce power that way. But it's also got inverters for solar panels to connect to it. But as opposed to taking all that with us, I just think, you know, if you're out and you want something that you can throw in your backpack, this is great. If it's accompanied by a small solar panel as well, you know, you've got a facility to make use of that daylight and charge it up. So power, light. I've got a little head torch here, which is critical when you're out on night time and you're searching for things, because you haven't got to have something in your hands. This isn't the best of the LED lights, but again, rechargeable batteries. What I might put on this is something that we can also charge up the batteries that run these things. That would be a great idea as well. But you can get a lot better lights than this. I think my hand torch really has at its purpose. Even though it's a diving torch and it's waterproof to about 40 metres, it still gives off a yellow light, and I think the day of yellow lights is completely gone. We should be moving towards these high powered LEDs that kick off a lot of lumens, such as Cree LEDs. I know that they consume a little bit more power, the Cree, but the amount of lumens they put off is well worth it, and you want these things to do the jobs. These are okay. The batteries never went flat in this at all once. I had problems with the straps, and that screw on the side had come loose whilst we was out there. Again, another piece of equipment that could have been tuned up a little bit before we took it out. But these are things that you should think about beforehand, not during a situation where you're out using them. So the backpack, the power pack, the power supply, and the power takeoff can be versatile for a lot of things. The other thing that I did was modified the camping cooker, the food facilities, the eating facilities and the cleaning facilities, and I'll just show you that quickly as well, guys. In my pack, I would have room for 2 gas canisters that would run the burner, a couple of mess tins that you can eat out of. You don't need plates with these, you can eat out of. Believe it or not, I cooked a meal while we was away for 3 people in that, so it just gives you an idea of the quantity of food that you can put in there. But you'll see now, I've got a small sponge, a tea towel, so I can wash and clean up the tins after I've used them, and I've got this micro burner, which is brilliant. You can get these off eBay, they're not that dear. If I just put the camera down there, I'll quickly show you how it all unfolds. 2 seconds, and I'll be with you. So you can see, it folds up into a nice little burner. And now that I've managed to sort the problem out with it, it works absolutely fantastic with a nice roaring blue flame as opposed to a 1.5 foot tall yellow flame. The only other thing I've got in here is some simple cutlery which folds down to, you know, nothing at all. You know, like a spoon. There's a spoon, knife and fork in there which fold out, and you know, they've all got on the sides, you know, a can opening facility or a flat bladed screwdriver, whichever you choose to use. It's very difficult. I'm going to have to sort out the tripod clip. I've got the tripod for this camera. I'm going to have to sort out the clip for it for in future, but you can see there, little flat bladed screwdriver on the end and a can opener as well. But they're just handy. But having the you know, the washing up, you know, the drying facilities and the sponge, perhaps the only thing that would go in this other than what I've got in there now would be probably a little tube of fairy liquid to do the washing up with. But I know in my Bugout bag I usually keep a brand new bar of soap in there, just in case, and that would do the same purpose as long as you've swilled off the soap suds afterwards. But you know, keeping things compact, you know, is what it's all about. Compact, lightweight, and more importantly, usable. So with that, guys, I'll let the credits roll and I'll say what I usually do. You know, enjoy the rest of your week, guys, and as always, bye for now.